In just 3 weeks, an otherwise unremarkable man watched a woman who once barely noticed him become utterly preoccupied with his presence. He'd suffered from self-doubt, spent small fortunes on gifts, and inundated her inbox with well-meaning messages, yet she remained distant. Then, by applying a handful of psychological levers I'll soon outline, he flipped the script. She began seeking his attention, curious about his every move. Over 7 years of clinical research and counseling, I've observed thousands of men stumble in their pursuit of connection, not because they lacked value, but because they wielded the wrong tools. They fought for affection with generosity of time rather than scarcity of attention. They sought to impress instead of to illuminate. Today, for the first time, I'll reveal 10 principles that marry the subtle power of dark psychology with the ancient wisdom of Stoicism, an unlikely synthesis that transforms how you guide human hearts. This isn't about slick manipulations or cheap persuasion techniques. It's the delicate art of understanding emotional currents, of steering them with integrity. By the end of this series, you'll never view attraction the same way. You'll notice the faint signals others miss, and you'll possess the tools to awaken genuine desire. Stick with me until the final principle, for it is the keystone that 99% of men overlook. Principle 1, the art of scarcity. We crave what eludes us. Consider the Hermes Birkin or those limited edition sneakers that prompt overnight queues, not because they're inherently superior, but because they're rare. Yet, in matters of the heart, most men do the opposite. They're instantly available, canceling plans and responding to every ping, only to wonder why they feel ordinary. Stoic philosophers remind us what comes easy is rarely valued, and Marcus Aurelius taught, a man's worth is measured, read not by the time he gives, but by the quality of that time. So how do you apply scarcity intelligently? First, cultivate a life rich in genuine purpose. Be so absorbed in meaningful endeavors that you naturally delay your replies. When she texts, "What are you up to?" resist the urge to respond immediately. Instead, let your next message arrive with context. "I was just finishing an important meeting, but I'd love to talk." The delay isn't about playing games. It's about signaling that your time is precious. Second, favor quality over quantity. One thoughtfully curated evening, complete with subtle surprises and moments of true connection, carries far more weight than a week of routine coffees or quick lunches. A client of mine once saw his love interest nearly every day in casual meetups, only to realize that abundance had bred complacency. He scaled back, crafting one extraordinary date per month, and she began to anticipate it with genuine excitement. By weaving scarcity into both your actions and your presence, you shift the dynamic from one of predictable access to one of coveted attention. She starts to wonder not just when she'll hear from you, but what else you're withholding, what depth she might discover next. And trust me, that sense of untapped possibility is the spark that kindles true obsession. When I guided him to condense his time, meeting only once a week but imbuing each encounter with deliberate care, something shifted. She began to count the days until their next meeting, almost as if her world orbited around that moment. Yet the pivotal insight here is that scarcity must never taste contrived. Dark psychology isn't about feigning distance. It's about cultivating genuine value so that your absence feels as natural as your presence was magnetic. Consider a real case. One client spent 6 fruitless months chasing her attention, only to redirect his energy toward career growth and personal passions, reserving their encounters for moments rich in meaning. Within 3 weeks, she became the one seeking him out, drawn not by need, but by anticipation of the quality he alone provided. Remember, the aim isn't to vanish into inaccessibility. It's to become undeniably worth pursuing. When you fuse the scarcity of your availability with the stoic certainty of self-worth, you forge an irresistible aura that beckons her curiosity. And this is merely the overture. Now prepare for principle 2. The art of calculated indifference. Here lies a paradox more potent than any overt display of longing, a measured detachment that speaks volumes. This isn't a lesson in coldness or neglect. It's a reflection of a timeless Stoic truth. Human desire deepens in the face of intentional reserve. When you step back with serene clarity, you invite her imagination to step forward, and that dance between presence and withdrawal becomes its own seductive rhythm. Epictetus once observed, "He who is overly attached to his own life will be a slave to the emotions of others." In that simple maxim lies a profound truth about our modern quests for connection. When our emotional equilibrium hinges on another's reactions, we forfeit our power and our desirability. Consider Michael, one of my recent clients. He tracked every text tone, every delayed reply, allowing each subtle shift in her enthusiasm to dictate his mood. An hour's delay, and his confidence crumbled. A single tepid emoji, and his day unraveled. Inevitably, the more he clung, the more she drifted away. This isn't coincidence. It's psychology. Showing that your inner world fluctuates with her attention signals low self-worth. In contrast, maintaining calm regardless of her actions broadcasts inner strength and self-sufficiency, traits irresistibly magnetic in any relationship. So how do you embody this Stoic ideal without becoming cold? First, practice emotional self-sufficiency. When her reply takes hours, resist the urge to hover. Dive into your own pursuits, whether it's a project, a workout, or a call with a friend. When she seems distant, let your composure speak. It's not feigned indifference, but genuine focus on your own purpose. A technique I teach is the mirror response. Match her emotional investment exactly. If she sends warmth in small doses, reciprocate in kind. If she pulls back, mirror that tempo. By reflecting her energy rather than chasing it, you reclaim the rhythm of attraction, inviting her to invest more while demonstrating that your stability is not up for grabs. You mirror her energy, no more, no less. If she sends a one-word reply, you match her brevity. And if she pours out a passionate paragraph, you meet her intensity. Yet the true mastery of calculated indifference comes when you shatter that pattern. When she expects your full investment, you offer casual detachment. And when she braces for distance, you deliver unexpected warmth. This ebb and flow creates an addictive uncertainty, a tension she can't shake. I watched this unfold with James, a client who once agonized over every nuance of her messages. When he adopted serene indifference, she suddenly sought his approval. But understand, this isn't a childish game. It's a commitment to emotional sovereignty, to ensuring your happiness and self-worth rest solely within you. As Seneca taught, our greatest power is indifference to what lies beyond our own mind. Ask yourself, what's more magnetic? A man whose world revolves around her every move, or one who thrives with or without her presence? Use this power ethically, for calculated indifference can intoxicate both wielder and. The art of creating perceived value isn't about donning a mask of false grandeur. It's about unveiling your true worth in such a way that it feels almost mythical. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that a man's value lives not in the applause he gathers, but in the silent achievements he conquers. Dark psychology adds a vital nuance. It isn't merely what you have accomplished, but the subtle choreography by which those accomplishments reveal themselves. Consider Alex, a high-powered attorney whose ledger of victories never translated into lasting interest. He broadcast every promotion like a resume read aloud, leaving women unengaged and his confidence waning. I guided him toward a different path. Let mystery weave the tapestry of your success so that your value emerges as a discovery rather than a declaration. Here's how you master this principle. When you land a major deal, don't proclaim the headline. Let her overhear your congratulatory call, catching just a fragment of your triumph. If you've cultivated discipline through daily workouts, skip the self-report and allow her to witness your dedication when you rise before dawn or return home dripping with resolve. In dark psychology's dance, what one unearths on their own resonates far deeper than any proclamation. They cherish the hunt, not the trophy. Here's the paradox. When you accomplish something remarkable and speak of it with quiet restraint, you actually magnify its impact. The Stoics knew this well. By understating your triumphs, you create an intriguing disconnect that compels others to lean in and ask questions, eager to bridge the gap between your silence and your achievement. I once worked with a self-made millionaire who plastered his success on every conversation. I urged him to reverse course, shift the spotlight onto others, listen with genuine curiosity, and reveal his victor. Is only when directly asked. The result? People became fascinated by the man behind the mystery, constantly probing to uncover the story he chose not to narrate. This is the essence of the value vacuum technique. Instead of pushing information about yourself, you design moments where others feel drawn to inquire. When she has to ask, "How did you make that deal?" or "What drove you to that discipline?" she's already invested, and her discovery carries far more weight than any self-reported resume ever could. But heed this caution. Authenticity is non-negotiable. As Seneca taught, false will falter, but truth will endure. The power isn't in fabricating value, it's in strategically unveiling the genuine depth of your worth. And here's the clincher. Once people perceive you as truly valuable, they begin to treat you differently, creating a snowball effect of respect, fascination, and effortless attraction. Have you noticed how, as your scarcity intensifies, others begin to treat you differently? Your absence becomes its own form of presence, and a self-reinforcing cycle of attraction ignites? Yet with that power comes responsibility, for wielded without care, it can ensnare rather than enchant. Now we arrive at Principle 4, the art of creating psychological dependency. This isn't about manipulative cruelty, but about harnessing the primal rhythm of presence and absence, certainty and uncertainty. Consider the most addictive mobile games. They don't shower you with prizes at every turn. They dispense just enough rewards to keep you yearning for the next. Emotionally, attachment operates on the same cadence. Desire flourishes in the spaces you leave behind. Take David, a devoted partner whose constant availability and unwavering support paradoxically drove her away. Why? Because yearning needs contrast. Without the tension born of occasional distance, there was no room for desire to kindle and burn. Begin by crafting what I call emotional peaks and valleys. When you're together, be wholly present, engaged, attentive, sculpting moments she'll replay long after you part. Then, rather than playing hollow games, step back with genuine focus on your own ambitions and passions. As the Stoics reminded us, a bow held ever taut will eventually snap. We must allow for release. This interplay of intensity and space is the dark psychology linchpin. People grow dependent not on relentless availability, but on those who kindle unforgettable highs and then leave room for yearning. You become the architect of her desire, mapping experiences she craves and memories she revisits. A technique I call emotional time dilation deepens this effect. In your shared moments, accelerate the flow of time through rich dialogue and shared discovery. Make an hour feel like 15 minutes. In your absence, stretch the seconds into minutes by simply not filling every silence, letting her mind wander back to your last exchange. Many men err by forcing these rhythms, treating it as a formula rather than a reflection of an authentic life. Recall Epictetus. No man is free who is not master of himself. Your retreat should be anchored in genuine self-cultivation, not in contrived tactics. Pursue your own excellence, and your absence will speak of substance. I guided one client to replace incessant daytime texting with a single, deeply engaging conversation each evening. The result? She began to anticipate that nightly connection with an eagerness that infused her entire day. Ultimately, this principle ignites a positive feedback loop. As she feels the pull of your presence and absence, she invests more of herself emotionally, seeking the peaks you've crafted and lingering in the valleys you've made sacred. That deepening investment you engineer, those peaks of connection and the space you leave, bind her more tightly to the relationship, cultivating a psychosis or logical dependency that feels as natural as it is powerful. Yet with this capacity comes a weighty responsibility. You're not merely toying with emotions, but partnering in someone's inner life. Use these insights to forge bonds built on mutual growth, not to manipulate or wound. Now, we approach Principle 5, the art of reading and guiding another's psychological state. Here, dark psychology converges with Stoic observation to give you a nuanced instrument for tuning into and gently steering emotional currents. Most men never see that her actions often diverge from her words, not from deceit, but because the psyche speaks in many registers. As the Stoics taught, men are disturbed not by things, but by their perception of things. Consider James, baffled by her mixed signals. She'd ask for space yet withdraw further when he honored her request. She'd profess craving confidence but lean in when he showed vulnerability. The challenge, and the opportunity, lies in discerning those subtleties beneath her speech, then responding from that deeper understanding. The real obstacle wasn't her mixed messages, but his inability to attune to the currents beneath the surface. To begin, cultivate what I call psychological sight. Observe the subtle dilation of her pupils, the flash of micro-expressions in her smile, the gentle shifts in her vocal tone. These unconscious cues never lie. They are the language of her unspoken self. Next, practice the echo method. When you detect her excitement, allow a hint of that same energy to color your own presence. When she withdraws into contemplation, match her calm, reflective cadence. And then, once you've mirrored her state, gently guide her toward the emotional territory you wish to explore, never rushing, always inviting. Here's the dark psychology insight. People are most open to those who seem to understand them intimately. I coached a man tormented by his partner's emotional unpredictability. Her coldness was not rejection, but a test for security. Her anger, a mask for vulnerability. By reading her hidden patterns, instead of reacting to the surface, he transformed their dynamic. Finally, remember the Stoics' counsel. Sometimes the wisest response to anger is silence. In mastering emotional psychology, you learn not just when to speak, but when your quiet offers the most profound answer. Some of the most powerful moves in this game are the ones you deliberately choose not to make. And yet wielding the ability to read someone's inner currents carries enormous responsibility. You gain influence over their emotional world, so use it to deepen connection, not to manipulate. The summit of this art is what I call psychological chess, not just sensing today's feelings, but predicting tomorrow's reactions, several moves in advance. But even that is eclipsed by Principle 6, the power of strategic silence. Silence isn't merely an absence of words, but a sculptor of psychological tension when wielded with precision. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius counseled that it's better to say nothing than to speak without purpose. Yet dark psychology elevates that wisdom to an entirely new plane. Consider Michael Juan, a client who, at the slightest hint of her doubt, would launch into elaborate explanations, and when she pulled away, he flooded her with frantic messages until dawn. His verbal onslaught extinguished mystery and desire alike. When he learned to embrace silence instead, letting unspoken pauses linger like the final resonant note of a symphony, he discovered that absence can become the most compelling invitation of all. He used to rush to fill every pause with words, to answer every question with explanations. But the most potent response is often no response at all. When you refrain from reacting, you activate a force far deeper than speech. Humans are meaning-making machines. Faced with silence, our minds rush in to fill the void, spawning what I call a psychological echo, where your quiet compels someone to wrestle with their own feelings about you. To wield this power, first learn the 3 forms of strategic silence. The pause when they expect an immediate reaction, the stillness when you're physically present yet emotionally withheld, and the absence when you vanish from their radar. I once watched a client transform a woman's mild dismissal into a hunt for his attention simply by not replying. His silence spoke volumes, and within hours, she was reaching out to gauge his next move. But here's the crucial intersection of Stoic wisdom and dark psychology. Your silence must spring from strength, not insecurity. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you choose to respond. When you opt for silence, let it be a conscious gesture rooted in your own purpose, not an impulsive retreat. The most powerful technique I teach, the vacuum effect, shows that when you withhold your reaction, you create a pull so strong it draws others into your orbit more surely than any words could. Yet with such precision comes great responsibility. Use this weapon to foster genuine connection, not to manipulate or harm. Like a finely honed blade, strategic silence can be wielded as either a powerful tool or a dangerous weapon. When misused, it severs connections and inflicts lasting damage. When wielded with intention, it sparks intense attraction and commands genuine respect. I've seen this principle perform miracles in my practice. One client faced a partner who incessantly tested his limits. Rather than engage her emotional ploys, he simply held his piats. And overnight, she began to honor him in a way she reserved for no one else. Yet this isn't an exercise in cold detachment. It's the art of understanding that silence, when deployed with purpose, can resonate more profoundly than any words you might utter. After all, no one has ever regretted saying nothing. Now, prepare for Principle 7, the art of control through perceived freedom. Here we reach the zenith of dark psychology fused with Stoic insight, unveiling a paradox at the heart of human desire. We yearn for freedom, yet we're magnetized to what we cannot entirely command. Consider Robert, a client who felt baffled as women consistently pulled away despite his devotion. By learning to offer genuine autonomy, encouraging her independence while remaining unwaveringly present, he discovered that giving freedom becomes the most compelling form of control. In our next session, I'll show you exactly how to strike that delicate balance so your presence feels as liberating as it is irresistible. He believed he had to orchestrate every detail, her time, her attention, her decisions, until I showed him the counterintuitive truth. Real power lives in giving freedom while quietly steering the outcome. Instead of dictating, "Let's meet Friday at 8, he learned to offer, "I'm free Friday evening or next Tuesday. What works best for you?" He still frames the options, yet she feels in charge. The Stoics saw this paradox centuries ago. Seneca taught that the greatest power is the power to set others free. And dark psychology adds that releasing your grip only draws people closer. I call this guided freedom. When you sense her pulling away, don't tighten the leash. Unleash a freedom bind. I understand you need space. Take all the time you require. And watch the psychological boomerang pull her back, more eager than before. But heed Marcus Aurelius's counsel. The best revenge is to be unlike the one who harmed you. If your generosity of freedom is genuine, you will attain a power that clinging could never muster. I've seen it transform relationships. Like the man whose commitment-phobic partner finally softened when he ceased trying to secure her and instead granted her the gift of autonomy. When he truly learned to embrace her freedom, something remarkable happened. She began to seek commitment on her own terms. And make no mistake, this isn't manipulation. It's profound understanding of human psychology. We crave autonomy, and we value what we freely choose rather than what we're coerced into accepting. When you master this, you unlock a form of influence more potent than any attempt at control. At its pinnacle lies what I call choice architecture, structuring situations so that others willingly make the choices you hope for, not because you forced their hand, but because you've aligned with their deepest inclinations. Yet here is the vital caveat. This demands genuine emotional maturity. If you merely feign generosity while clutching for control, your inauthenticity will betray you. Now, our journey through these principles, from scarcity to freedom, comes full circle, shaping a presence that is irresistibly magnetic, not through coercion, but through attunement to the rhythms of human desire. And always remember, great power carries great responsibility. Use these insights to cultivate relationships built on mutual growth and respect, never to manipulate or harm. In the end, the most seductive quality is authenticity fused with deep understanding. As we close this exploration of dark psychology and Stoic wisdom, know that these principles transcend the art of attraction. They are the foundations of truly meaningful connection. These insights transcend mere tactics. They're about attuning to the hidden architectures of desire and wielding them with integrity and purpose. Think back to where you started. Perhaps you wondered why your gestures fell flat, why your deepest intentions went unnoticed. Now you possess something far more precious than tricks. You have understanding. You've seen how scarcity ignites intrigue, how calculated indifference shifts the balance of power, how perceived value magnetizes attention, how psychological dependency deepens connection, how reading and leading emotions paves the way to intimacy, how strategic silence amplifies presence, and how guided freedom transforms control into genuine attraction. Yet with such influence comes a solemn responsibility. I've watched men rise from obscurity to such potency they nearly overwhelmed the very bonds they sought, which is why Stoic discipline is our compass, ensuring you use these principles to foster authentic bonds, not to manipulate. Consider James, my most successful client. He didn't just attract her. He built a relationship of mutual depth and respect. When I asked his secret, he said, I stopped trying to make her want me and focused on becoming someone worth wanting. That, at its essence, is everything we've explored. Dark psychology uncovers the engine of attraction, and Stoic wisdom teaches you to steer it with compassion and ethical clarity. Now let's delve into Principle 8, the trigger of emotional contrast. You ever notice how the people who wreak the most havoc on your emotions are the ones you can't stop replaying in your mind? It's not because they're the most dazzling or the most magnanimous. It's because, consciously or not, they mastered the art of contrast, flipping your feelings like a switch and leaving you craving that next surge of attention, validation, or warmth. Here's the truth. Emotional contrast is one of the most potent triggers for connection, especially in romance. When wielded with intention, with restraint, with true finesse, it can cultivate a longing so deep it borders on addiction. Most men believe the secret to winning her heart is unwavering consistency, always available, always reassuring, always kind. But when consistency slides into predictability, predictability slides into boredom. What you've built isn't love, it's comfort. And comfort may feel safe, but it doesn't spark obsession. It doesn't ignite desire. It doesn't fuel chemistry. It simply breeds stability, which is often the last thing you want in those thrilling early stages. Now imagine a different rhythm. One day you're warm, open, charmingly connected. The next you pull back, not with coldness, but with focused presence in your own world. That subtle retreat creates a delicious uncertainty. And what does the human brain do when faced with uncertainty? It hunts for resolution, for meaning, for closure. And in that search, it chases you. Emotional contrast is the subtle alchemy of offering just enough to draw her in, yet withholding enough to keep her wondering, because mystery is magnetic and certainty is the death of desire. This isn't about petty games or cruel manipulation. It's about being deliberate with your emotional energy. Show up with full presence and purpose, then gracefully step back, letting that presence linger in her mind until the precise moment of uncertainty when a gesture of warmth lands like a revelation. Stoic wisdom teaches us to master our impulses, to choose when to extend love, attention, or validation, because rarity amplifies impact. Think of a thunderstorm after weeks of oppressive heat. It isn't merely rain, It's relief, an event we feel in our bones. If it poured daily, we'd stop noticing. Your vulnerability should feel like a singular occurrence, not part of the wallpaper of routine. So begin by cultivating self-awareness. Observe if you're always the one texting first, always on call, always affirming. Then intentionally pause, just enough to create a meaningful gap, a space she can't help but inhabit, wondering what you'll do next. Second, lean into your purpose. Fill your days with pursuits that ground you, projects that challenge your mind, passions that nourish your soul, goals that pull you forward. When your calendar overflows with genuine growth, your distance isn't theatrical. It's simply life unfolding. She senses that your absence isn't punishment. It's magnetism. She knows you're more than a mere option, and that realization makes her quietly earn her way back into your orbit. Third, trust the silence. You don't have to chase to stay on her radar. Sometimes it's the pause that speaks most clearly. That moment she wonders, why hasn't he reached out? Is he pulling away? It's not alarm, it's ignition. In that hush, she replays every exchange, searches for meaning in your last words, leans into you even when you're not there. That is the essence of emotional contrast. Not chaotic hot and cold, but a measured rhythm, like a melody that builds tension in its rises and falls. Think of a summer breeze. You feel its promise before it arrives. You don't chase the wind, you let it come to you. Your intention isn't to create misery, but to compose tension. You pause, you return, you lift and release, and that cadence makes the experience feel alive. Remember, consistency builds security, but contrast builds attraction. If you want her heart, offer warmth. If you want her curiosity, spark mystery. And if you want both, master their interplay. If that insight resonates, type "I move with intention" in the comments. And while you're here, subscribe, because up next is a move most men fear to employ, yet once you understand it, she'll feel it deep in her soul. Stay close. Now, number 9, the mirror of selective attention. Let me ask you something real. Have you ever met someone who seemed to see straight through you? Not in a creepy way, but in the way you felt profoundly understood. That person didn't shower you with empty praise. They didn't pepper you with 1,000 questions. They simply noticed the right details and made you feel like those quiet fragments of yourself. Rare and valued. That's the force of selective attention. Most men equate paying attention with relentless praise. You're beautiful. You're so smart. You amaze me. But when admiration is everywhere, it evaporates into white noise. Selective attention flips the script. You become deliberate, strategic, honing in on what truly resonates. She doesn't feel merely admired. She feels seen. Imagine catching the subtle shift in her tone when she talks about her passions, or the way she tucks her hair behind her ear when she's deep in thought. You don't just observe these moments, you reflect them back like a mirror. In that echo, she discovers her own depth, and an emotional pull is born. Why? Because most people, especially those accustomed to surface-level flattery, feel invisible beneath it all. You, however, catch what lies beneath, and you do it with restraint, never flooding, always precise. Stoicism teaches us to observe without judgment, to remain present without reactive emotion. In that calm, discerning presence, true connection takes root. Selective attention is the principle in action. You don't react to every word or chase validation through constant praise. You remain anchored, watching, waiting. Then you speak to something profoundly real. But here's where the magic deepens. You don't mirror everything. You refuse the role of her personal hype man. Instead, you spotlight the traits that resonate with your own values. In doing so, you're not just validating her. You're revealing yourself, what you cherish, what you prioritize. Suddenly, she's not merely aware of how you see her. She wonders, why did he notice that? She begins to view herself through your lens. Your frame becomes her mirror. And that is where dark psychology takes root. She starts seeking your attention, not for its abundance, but for its rare precision. Rarity magnifies value, specificity imprints memory. If 10 strangers tell her she's pretty, the echo lasts seconds. But if you remark on the soft tremor in her voice when she speaks of her childhood dog, that observation lodges itself in her emotional core. To master this art, first slow down. Most men never listen beneath the words, missing the unspoken currents in her energy, her tone, her silence. Then let her reveal herself. Don't prod, don't pry. When she does share that one detail that matters, hold on to it. Not everything, but that singular truth. Then, at the perfect moment, reflect it back with the quiet certainty of someone who truly sees. You'd be surprised how a single, precisely delivered line, struck at just the right angle, can resonate long after you speak it. And the secret isn't in flooding her with praise, but in knowing when to gently mirror and when to simply observe. A pregnant pause, a subtle nod, a quiet smirk can say more than 100 words. In those moments, you're not just reflecting her. You're revealing your own calm confidence, showing you're unfazed, unneedy, not chasing approval, but choosing to truly see. That's the difference between the man who flatters and the man who impresses. The former notices everything and becomes noise. The latter notices the essential and lingers in her mind long after the conversation ends. If this struck a chord, if you've ever felt the power of being deeply seen, type, "I see what matters" below. And if you're ready to master that subtle power and be remembered, not just liked, hit subscribe now, because next we'll explore the one habit most men overlook, yet one that silently makes or breaks every connection you forge. Stay sharp. Now, let me invite you to sit with this. What draws people into your orbit? I'm not asking about your looks, your wealth, or your status, but the deeper gravitational pull of your emotional purpose, the unseen force that truly moves others toward you. They keep returning, drawn by a pull they can't name, circling back even when logic offers no map. And that unseen force is emotional purpose. Most men drift through life on reactive currents, dodging stress, chasing approval, following every mood swing and external demand. Yet when a man anchors himself in emotional purpose, when every gesture, even his silence, carries intention, everything changes. He no longer chases, he attracts. Emotional purpose isn't about intensity or gravitas. It's about an inner compass so clear and rooted that his presence broadcasts, "I know who I am, what I stand for, and I needn't justify it." That calm certainty, this quiet blaze, generates gravity. People feel it. Women especially feel it, because so many men flit from emotion to emotion, from one connection to the next, seeking validation in another's gaze. But your words are measured, spoken only when they matter. Your energy is selective, reserved for what deserves it. You don't pursue attention, you command presence. That resonance outlasts charm or good looks. Emotional purpose isn't loud, it's visceral. It's the moment she steps into your field and notices her own defenses soften, her racing thoughts still. Not because you perform, but because your energy whispers, "This is solid ground." This is the heart of genuine stoicism. You can't command every circumstance, but you choose how you meet each one. Your emotions aren't marionettes for the world to pull. They're instruments to be refined, respected, and held as sacred. When you cultivate that mastery, guiding yourself with emotional purpose, you become the man others naturally follow. In a relationship, it looks like this. When she pulls away, you don't collapse. You pause, observe, and recalibrate. You resist the urge to overshare for the sake of connection. Instead, you let silence carry its own weight. You don't chase her approval. You stand unwavering in your truth, even when it feels uncomfortable. Here's the paradox. Emotional purpose makes you magnetic not by what you reveal, but by what you withhold. Intentional mystery becomes the seed of desire. Not every woman will recognize it. Some will prod for access, seeking validation or drama. Let them drift away. The woman who hungers for depth, not noise, will feel your calm as conviction, your silence as focus, your presence as an anchor. So don't strive to impress. Root yourself in authenticity. Choose your words with purpose. Honor your emotions as sacred. And even in your absence, your presence will speak volumes. That's the man she never forgets, the one who drifts through her thoughts when the world goes silent at midnight. If this stirs something in you, if it whispers of the man you're destined to become, type, "My presence has gravity," in the comments. Before we close, one final caveat. What I've shared today carries immense potency. Wield it with wisdom. Wield it with integrity. Above all, wield it to forge authentic connections, not to inflate your ego. For those ready to plunge deeper, an advanced series is on the horizon. Subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss those next-level techniques which make today's lessons feel like child's play. And remember, true power isn't about domination. It's about understanding of yourself, of others, and of the intricate choreography of the human heart. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next chapter of this journey.